Hey, hi everybody. I'm Jasmine, and today I'm joined by Celine Courtay-Cohen. And Celine is the senior manager in the regulatory affairs team at Boyds. And today we're going to be recording a Conversations in Careers as part of our Building Life Science Adventures Careers Conference. So to get going, Celine, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and what you currently do?
Okay, thank you very much, Jazz. Thank you for inviting me to this conversation.
Okay.
It's very nice. So yes, so I'm Celine Courtay-Cohen and I work at Boyd Consultant, which is a consultancy in regulatory affairs. I can start by talking about my previous career. Previously, before being in Reg Affair, I was a researcher in molecular biology. I have a PhD and I did a few postdocs as well. I worked and traveled as researcher, as many researchers do, in several countries in Europe and the US. So I went a bit around. Part of my postdoc, I became specialized in a technique. It was the late 90s, a technique called fluorescent in situ hybridization, which allowed really to paint in different colors with fluorochromes, part of chromosomes or part of DNA, and to visualize those chromosomes or DNA strands using complex microscopes, which could see in different colors. Using that technique, I joined a team at Cambridge University. It was in '97, yeah, and we used this technique to map chromosome rearrangements in cancer. We were working in breast cancer at the time. And after a few years, the techniques evolved and we started to use DNA microarrays, which are called DNA microchips as well. And it was really for the same purpose, to map rearrangement in cancer, but the resolution with microarray was much greater than it was before using whole chromosomes. So also I stayed in the same field in research. The field evolved, so I used different techniques. And I loved it. I love my job as a researcher. It's a detective work to find answers to your questions, and it's associated with technical skills. And I quite like the combination of science and technique. However, after quite many years in research as a bench, I think I was ready for a change of horizon. I was curious to discover something new. And I looked for new career opportunities, still based obviously on science and scientific skills, and where I could use my previous knowledge in biology and oncology. But I kind of wanted to see on the other side of the fence, to know more about drug development, not just finding about disease, but also how you can treat it, how you can make a difference for people. Looking in that direction, actually, I found that regulatory affairs could be the perfect fit. Regulatory affairs is a relatively new profession, and maybe now more people know about it, especially now with COVID, and people know more about drug development since a few years than they did before. But even when I started my career as a researcher, I never heard about it. So it's still not very much known. When people ask me, what do you do? I'm like, you know what? I'm doing regulatory affairs. Reg affairs, it was really developed from the need to protect the public, patients, and clinical trial volunteers while using new medicines. it was really mid 20th centuries where it really take off with the realization that patients had to be, there needed to be safeguards to make sure people were protected. So basically regulatory professionals, the pharmaceutical industry, and the governmental agencies which are putting also regulations in place. So those agencies like the European Medicine Agency, which is in Amsterdam now, or the FDA in the US, and each country has its own agency. In London, it's called the MHRA. So we're basically interacting on behalf of the pharmaceutical industry with those agencies. And so we're the interface, and all those regulations put out by the agencies are there to make sure the new medicines are now developed in a controlled way. So there are controls all along the development process, manufacture, test, at every step. There's a huge amount of regulation the industry has to abide by. Even once a medicine is released to patient, it's on the market, there is still monitoring, surveillance, which is called pharmacovigilance in the field. And it's there to gather data from the patient and feeding back to the industry to make sure the medicine is safe and effective. So it is a huge field. And hopefully as a reg professional, we make a contribution to make sure towards public health and welfare, and to make sure medicines are safe and effective.
Amazing. I mean, it is such an important kind of career path, but like you say, a lot of people, when you say I'm in regulatory affairs, they're like, I don't fully understand what that is. But I mean, you've captured it really nicely and kind of summarized what you do amazingly. So I think that's really helpful. What kind of advice would you give to somebody that's maybe considering a career in regulatory affairs that is a bench scientist and maybe is a bit worried about making that transition?
Yes. It is a bit challenging to transition. It's not impossible. Most people actually in regulatory affairs have had a previous career. I would say regulatory affairs requires quite a wide skill set. Not only we need the science to understand the new technologies and the medicines, but we're interacting with people, with our clients in the industry and with the regulators. So we need people skills, we need management skills, and we need to constantly adapt as well, because all those regulations, they're constantly evolving because the science is evolving and the science feeds back to the regulations. So the regulations are evolving, and also the regulation might differ between regions in the world. So they're similar, but not exactly the same between Europe and the US or Asia. So again, we need to be able to gather the information, adapt to it. So it's a wide skill set, which means that Reg Affair actually is quite well suited as the second part of a working life, I would say, or second part of career. And lots of people, lots of scientists are transitioning to Reg Affair at some point, or pharmacists who were involved in drug productions and transition to reg affair, or medical doctor, again called the reg affair. So there are people from a quite wide professional landscape. But now there's now as well, you can study reg affair at university now. So the young professional can as a profession as well and study it at university. You can do a master or even a PhD in reg affair.
Wow.
There's 1 or 2 universities in the UK now offering this path. So again, people can enter, as a young professional or as a more mature professional.
Amazing.
Yeah,
that's really helpful to know. So if we go back to your education, so you said that you did a PhD as well. So what did you study in your undergrad?
So I studied molecular biology.
Mm-hmm. And then did you do your master's in molecular biology as well? And then
yes,
through to PhD?
yeah. Well, I studied in France, so it's a bit different. But yeah, I could say I did my master in molecular biology, and I did and then I did my PhD, was linked to the pharmacy. It's a University of Pharmacy, so it was a PhD in pharmacology, but in reality, I was studying a gene family involved in detoxification of cells. So it was related to pharmacology through the detoxification of cell things, but the day-to-day work was really molecular biology, mapping genes, sequencing, and it was before all the genome sequencing and all those big sequencing machine came out. So it was still a long and painful process to identify gene and map them and find out where they were in the genome. So yeah.
Amazing. And how useful do you think it was for you to do a PhD? Do you think you would be where you are today without your PhD, or are you kind of glad that you did it? Because I know there's a lot of people now kind of considering, shall I do a PhD or shall I just go straight into industry? It's
well, you can do a PhD in industry, I guess, or go to industry after your PhD. Myself, I'm very glad I did a PhD, especially I'm from the non-English speaking world, so which is another limitation, I would say. A PhD, it's really it's both the same anywhere in the world. When you got a PhD and nobody asks you if it was where it was done, it's still, if you got A-levels, if you've done them in France or I don't know, in any country, it hasn't the same weight. When you have a PhD, it has the same weight everywhere, and you can it has the same value anyway. It's if you plan to travel a bit and work in different regions of the world, I think it's a very good passport to work anywhere in the world, a PhD, because it's recognized the same everywhere. And as any studies, it's a stepping stone for anything you want to do after that. After a PhD, you can go to industry, or you can go to academic, or I think it's a very good stepping stone, and you do acquire a very good skill set as well of learning, resilience, interacting with people, because now most research projects are part of being big consortium between many labs, or if you're part of a European project, you can have like up to 40 labs working together. So it prepares you well for the future, even for working in industry when you have to interact with different teams.
Amazing. So based on your experiences throughout your career journey, did you face any challenges along the way?
Yes. yeah, maybe the first one was language. To transition to being fluent in English. Yes, that was the first one, I think, the first challenge. I remember, studying for my master and trying to read paper in English and not understanding very well. And it was, so it is actually, the language is the first challenge. But then definitely one big challenge was, to transition from research into reg affair. Because I guess I stayed for so long in academia. I stayed for 20 years. It took some time to convince recruiter that my skill set will be suitable for industry as well. There is, I guess, there is some kind of misunderstanding, I would say, from recruiters sometimes about academic people. I don't know, sometimes academic people might be seen as more free spirits who won't easily follow rules or guidance, or who won't fit into a structure, which I don't think is true, because there is rules and structure in academia as well. But it took quite a lot of convincing for me, for the recruiter, that my skill set was appropriate and transferable to regulatory affairs. So I think I didn't give up. I built an argument to really show that the skills I acquired before, with examples, management of time, management of people, people skills, were transferable and were adaptable to the new career. And I also did a lot of research in regulatory affairs myself. I read books and went to meet people and talk with people to show that I was committed to this career path.
Amazing. So can you give me maybe a few things that you are grateful for learning throughout your experiences? It could be a person, maybe if you've had like a mentor, or if you've had a particular experience that you've kind of held on to throughout your career.
I'm not sure I can spot one person in particular, or I met all along the way, I met amazing people who really helped by just an example, or because they did help. When I was doing research, I met some very bright people. But what I learned, especially actually when I was in Cambridge, is that what mattered most was not how bright you were, but how ready to share, how ready to work as a team was what made the huge difference actually about getting results or not. Bright people in isolation, they just one bright person, but when they start to share and to work as a team and actually bring different teams together, that's where the difference is being made, really. And I really saw that happening when I was in Cambridge in the labs working together. So maybe that was my best lesson in life. Working together.
Thank you. Yeah, that's. I think. I mean, teamwork is amazing, isn't it? So just to kind of finish us up, if you were kind of speaking to an early career seeker, or maybe yourself when you were at university and you were making all of these big decisions, what would be one key piece of advice that you would give?
Yeah, I would say grab any opportunity which presents itself, or even which doesn't present itself, make it happen. Yeah, be curious, seek, go talk to people, learn about different things, be curious, and be confident enough to go and talk to people or discover new things, new places, traveling physically or mentally. Now there's so many ways to find information. Yeah, just basically, if you know something, learn something else. That would be my advice. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Celine, and it's been a pleasure to do this interview with you today, and thank you for sharing an insight into your career and regulatory affairs and some amazing advice. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Thank you.